There is a drinking water settlement for First Nations, and the claims process is now open.
This might sound like an infomercial, but if you lived on one of the 258 First Nations communities in Canada touched by a long-term water advisory since 1995, you may now be entitled to compensation.
It's big. It's historic.
Last December, the federal government reached an $8 billion settlement in a class action suit. At least $1.85 billion is set aside for individual compensation. Another $6 billion is earmarked for improvements to infrastructure. For lawyers on the case, the settlement newly recognizes First Nations rights as well as federal responsibility.
I mean, it's a pretty hard one to sort of say I don't really have any responsibility for, human rights issues and sickness issues and, watching videos with children with sores on them from being washed in the water that comes out of people's taps. I mean, that's pretty gruesome stuff, but it's real.
And just ask those leading the class action, like Curve Lake First Nation in Ontario.
Water is such a critical part of our cultural beliefs. That's the lifeblood of Mother Earth. That's what that's our responsibility to take care of as Indigenous people, as Anishinaabe.
Chief Weetung says Curve Lake still isn't as bad off as other communities, but lack of water affects everyday life.
The impact of not being able to wash your clothes because, they come out completely ruined. The additional financial burden of having water that destroys your appliances on a regular basis and significantly faster than in, non-Indigenous communities, of sitting beside your child in the bath every night until they're 3 or 4 and understand that they can't put the water in their mouth.
Individual compensation amounts will vary based on the type, duration, and harms. You're eligible to apply if you lived on a First Nation with a water advisory lasting more than a year, if that advisory took place between November 1995 and June 2021, or if you've experienced long-term health effects as a result of a water advisory. Claim forms can be filled out online at www.firstnationsdrinkingwater.ca. Although the individual compensation is good news, all eyes are on long-term solutions put in place by the feds.
Canada's ultimately got to come to the decision of whether or not they constantly want to do this, or do they want to set up structures where this actually gets done and resolved, because they almost all end up in some kind of a settlement agreement.
People making individual claims have until March 2023 to file. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.